Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning to viewers in Europe and the West Asia. And good afternoon to viewers in Malaysia and the rest of Asia. As we know, exactly a week ago, i.e. on Monday, May 20th, the ICC prosecutor, Mr. Karim Khan, said that his office had applied for arrest warrants for Israeli and Hamas leaders for alleged crimes committed during the Hamas-led October 7 attack on southern Israel and Israel's subsequent attack on Gaza. Mr. Khan also announced that his office had reasonable grounds to believe that the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and also his Defense Minister, Mr. Gallant, that they bear criminal responsibility for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And Mr. Khan also applied for arrest warrants for 3 Hamas leaders, Mr. Yahya Sinwar, Mr. Ismail Hania, and also Mr. Muhammad Diab Ibrahim, also for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Well, we all know that for many months before that, many people were actually very angry at Karim Khan for not issuing these arrest warrants against the Israeli leaders, even though thousands and thousands of Palestinians were being killed by Israeli forces. In fact, some actually said that Karim Khan, meaning, should be charged for non-action, charged for war crime for not taking action against Israel. But now he has acted. And so those who were angry at him before seem to be quite happy. But we also know that the Zionists and their supporters are now very angry at Karim Khan and had called even for sanctions to be imposed on him and his officers and the human rights experts that were advising him. But so we have some questions that need clarification for us to understand. Number one is, will the judges of the ICC approve the application by Mr. Karim Khan? And even if the judges approve the application, will the countries that are signatories to the Rome Statute, will they act to arrest him and his defense minister? Netanyahu. Are they willing to arrest him and his defense minister? Because we read that the United Kingdom's Prime Minister's spokesperson, he himself said that the decision by ICC is, quote unquote, is not helpful in relation to reaching a pause in the fighting and getting hostages out or getting humanitarian aid in. So the UK actually criticized the decision by the ICC. And the other countries like the US, Austria, and the Czech Republic also criticized the decision by the ICC. So the question is the ICC decision, is it going to change things? Is it going to change things on the ground in Palestine? And so to answer this question, Alhamdulillah, we have with us today our special guest, Dr. Azzam Tamimi, to help us understand the decision by the ICC and also the implication for the future prospect for peace in the Middle East and also for the future impact on the Palestinian struggle for freedom and independence. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Azzam.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hayyakum Allah.
Thank you for your kind willingness to talk to us today. And before we ask you the questions, let me briefly introduce you to the viewers. Dr. Azzam is a British Palestinian writer, analyst, and commentator. He has a PhD in political philosophy from University of Westminster in London. He was also the director of the London-based Institute of Islamic Political Thought, and also a lecturer at the Markfield Institute of Higher Education in Leicestershire, UK. He was a visiting professor at 2 universities in Japan, Kyoto and Nagoya, and he was also he co-founded the London-based Al-Hiwar Arabic satellite TV channel, and he has written many books on Islamic political thought and the Middle Eastern politics. The most famous being Hamas Unwritten Chapters, which was published by Hearst in London, published in 2006. So my first question to Dr. Azzam is this decision by ICC, is it a surprise to you? And if yes, why?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Frankly, yes, it is. It came as a surprise. I wasn't expecting Karim Khan to take such a bold step. You see, these institutions like the ICC, ICJ, all these institutions, they are very similar to institutions that exist in a third world dictatorship. They are meant to be used against the vulnerable, against the weak, but not against the strong. You know how a dictator would intervene in the legal process in a country that has no rule of law, that has no equality before the law, that has no respect for human rights. And there are many of them, especially those former colonies of the British and the French around the world. This is the same situation in which we find the institutions of the so-called international community, because the international community is a dictatorship ruled by the United States of America. And America decides, together with its allies, who can be prosecuted and who cannot be prosecuted. So at best, this decision by Karim Khan is really symbolic more than anything else. It's highly unlikely to be enforced because these institutions have no mechanism to enforce their decisions. They need the Security Council to step in, and the Security Council is held hostage to the 5 permanent members. And mostly it's the United States of America that dominates the scene. And although Karim Khan tried his best to make his decision palatable, as acceptable as possible to the so-called international community, he immediately came under fire. I mean, anybody who knows the history of the conflict in Palestine and anybody who has been following what's been going on over the past 8 months in Gaza would be amazed at such an attempt to treat the victim and the criminal in the same way. Israel, or the Zionist entity, is the criminal here. They've been occupying Palestine, they've been murdering the Palestinian people, they've been dispossessing them, they've been committing genocide in Gaza for the past 8 months. And yet, the defenders of the Palestinian people, who have every right under international law to resist occupation and to fight against this aggression, are equated and included in the same application or in the same potential warrant for arrest. However, he did this, and I know why he did this. He did this because he wanted his decision to be seen as fair, as acceptable somehow to the Western powers, who immediately lashed back and rejected it. And Biden in particular, I mean, his statement is so thuggish that he refused to equate Benjamin Netanyahu with the leaders of Hamas. Of course, we refuse that for our own reasons, but he has his own reasons for this. So we don't really expect justice from these international institutions, but at least it was symbolic in a sense.
Yeah, because I read a comment by Albanese, the UN rapporteur. Right? she said that this decision is actually historic. For her, this is a very significant historic, because this has never happened before. Right? Israeli leader being charged or being under this threat of prosecution by the ICC. Do you agree with the term historic?
It is, in a sense, historic. Though I know from my personal contacts with the ICC that there were attempts prior to this, especially after the 2008-2009 war on Gaza. The prosecutor at the time, I think he was from Latin America. I forgot. He was probably from Brazil or somewhere.
Ocampo.
Oh yes, that's him. Yes, that's him. He was very eager to do something, and he invited me to a meeting at the ICC, and I went to see him. And he said he would love to make Israel accountable for the crimes it committed in Gaza at the time. But he knew how difficult that was going to be. So he asked me if I could gauge the mood within Hamas because of my contacts with some of its leaders and my personal acquaintances with them, to gauge the mood and see if they would be willing to cooperate, in the sense that he'd call for an investigation of both sides. He was convinced himself that there is no comparison between the two, between victim and criminal here. However, he wanted just to open a window. He wanted to open a door. And of course, at the time, regrettably, Hamas wasn't very willing to go along with the proposal he made, because the ICC was going after al-Bashir in Sudan. And Hamas and Sudan were on good terms at the time, and Sudan provided logistical support and also provided accommodation for some of Hamas people in Sudan. So for that consideration, that didn't work. But I knew that at different stages, people within the ICC were horrified at what Israel was doing, but they knew there were formidable obstacles, and they were trying somehow to surmount them, to go around them. It's impossible. You see, this world order that was set up after the Second World War, this is owned by the Americans. This is owned by the victors in that war. And like Karim Khan himself admitted, I mean, he quoted some leader, probably in Europe, I don't know who the person was, but he quoted him as saying that this is not the purpose for which the ICC was set up. It was set up in order to go after the Africans and thugs like Putin. This is what he said to him. And he came out and disclosed this publicly. This is the true nature of these institutions. But these institutions exist, and for us and for many victims of this world order, trying to work through them is simply an attempt to educate the public, the world's public, because for many decades there's been so much misinformation, so much disinformation, so much pumping of lies by the so-called mainstream media around the world, which is fed by news agencies loyal to those in charge of this world order, that when you go to UN platforms, when you go to the ICJ, to the ICC, when you try with them, you hope that this would shed light on your victimhood, on your plight. That's all really.
Okay. So now the ball is in the court of the judges, right? The judges now have got to consider his application, and there is a likelihood that the judges may reject his application. And if that is the case, then it's nothing to talk about after that, right?
Of course, that's the first major obstacle. But even if the judges agree, how are you going to enforce this?
Yeah.
That's a real issue. There will always be a problem. But I mean, the people of South Africa, the people of Vietnam, the people of Algeria, the oppressed people of the world really never gained their freedom through these institutions. They gained their freedom through a persistent struggle, and a struggle that was accompanied along the way by a change in public perception of what the problem is about. That's why during the last years of apartheid in South Africa, we had a global movement against apartheid. And I think the same thing is happening at the moment. At the moment, there's a movement, a global movement against Zionism that is forming. I mean, people like me and you who still remember the 70s and the 80s vividly, at the time, nobody expected that movement to play a significant role in ending apartheid in South Africa. But eventually it did, despite opposition from the likes of Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher, and many leaders in the West who supported apartheid, funded it, and guarded it, just like they do to Israel today.
So, in other words, you are saying if people around the world are getting excited, feeling excited about the ICC decisions, then they are actually quite naive, because this is not going to change things as far as the Palestinian struggle is concerned. Is that you are saying, right?
Well, practically, I'm saying that practically it will not change things, but as a symbolic, I don't know what to call it, gesture, as a symbolic gesture, I think it is historic in a sense, because Israel was never condemned by a respected international, so-called respected international platform, as it has recently been condemned.
So, in other words, the fact that ICC has made this decision shows that the efforts of people around the globe highlighting the genocide in Gaza and the injustice in Palestine, they have actually succeeded in forcing the arms of the ICC to take this decision. In other words,
Definitely, definitely. And that's why we should never belittle any effort. And I really salute all the people who are standing by the Palestinians and are struggling for justice for the Palestinians. The students in campuses around the world, from North America to Southeast Asia, from North Europe to South Africa, everywhere. I salute the lawyers, the human rights activists. I salute everybody that has been putting pressure on the world community with all its institutions, because this is the product of that pressure. Had people not being shouting and demanding and saying things, probably this would not have happened.
Yeah. There are people even in Japan, in Osaka, all the cities in Japan, protesting against the Japanese.
Myself, I've just returned from South Korea, and it's just amazing. I visited 2 universities. I gave talks and held meetings in various cities throughout the week. I was there in South Korea, and maybe the media is not so much interested in what's going on there like they do in the case of Columbia or Harvard or some of the universities here in Europe. But students everywhere are actively demanding for justice for the Palestinians.
You are talking about Korean students also are very, very loud and vocal.
They are indeed, definitely. And every time I ended my talk, they'd stand all together and they say, "Free, free Palestine. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." That's their slogan. It's the slogan everywhere.
Yeah, well-known slogan all throughout the world. Alhamdulillah. Okay, but the ICC also issued arrest warrant for Hamas leaders now. That also can be very dangerous. I mean, now the Hamas leaders can be arrested when they travel, and in a way that is like a negative outcome as far as we are concerned for the Palestinian struggle.
It is negative, but it is also symbolic in its negativity, because Sinwar and Adif are in Gaza. They're not going anywhere. Hamas is already designated a terrorist organization by much of the West and, the allies of the West. Ismail Haniya is the only one who sometimes travels to Cairo or to Istanbul or to Ankara, and he can still do his business without traveling there. I don't think he'd be concerned about Turkey. He might be concerned about Egypt. I don't trust the authorities in Egypt to sell, because they'd sell you for 5 quids. I mean, they don't care. But yes, it is also symbolic. It won't make much difference anyway. But Hamas condemned that decision, although it welcomed the first part of it. It expressed rejection of the second part of it.
Okay, I think it's important for the world community to be educated on the unfairness of charging the Hamas leaders for the crime by the ICC is actually quite unjust.
True. But as I said to you, he thought this would be a price worth paying, or that needed to be paid in order for him to spare himself and his institution. But actually, he hasn't succeeded. He wasn't spared. He wasn't spared at all.
Yeah, because now sanctions are going to be imposed against him, Karim Khan, and also by his so-called advisors, his advisors. I think some experts to the ICC are also going to be facing trouble if they go to the US. I think their assets are going to be frozen or something like that.
You know, the world order that I referred to earlier it's like an aging old man with a spoiled, mischievous young son. And this young son is so corrupt and so annoying, goes about hurting people, abusing them, attacking them, and whatever this spoiled young son does, the father is providing him with protection. And this is what Israel is doing. I mean, Israel was ordered by the ICJ to stop its operation in Rafah, and look what they've been doing. Yesterday night, while people were sleeping, a huge massacre was perpetrated against these civilians, these refugees who were told by the Israelis themselves that if you stay in this area, this is a safe haven. Yet they burned them alive. What sort of world order are we living in? And that's why I find it very significant that the student movement around the world, which started as a gesture of solidarity with the Palestinians, is now actually developing into a movement against a corrupt world order. This world order needs to be changed. We cannot, as human beings, continue to live under such an oppressive world order that is so racist and doesn't believe in universal justice, doesn't believe in universal human rights, whatever values it pretends to believe in are very exclusive and not inclusive. This has to change.
So the Palestinian cause, inshallah, we will see victory for Palestine, inshallah, in the future, which means Therefore, if we use the South African story as an analogy or as an example, the leaders, the Palestinian leaders, will one day be considered heroes and no longer criminals, provided that they succeed. If they succeed, and inshallah they will succeed, Ismail Hania and the two other leaders be will be treated as heroes rather than criminals, and the ICC will be seen to be completely discredited.
Indeed, when I tell students, I mean, I go around the campuses and speak to students, and I tell them the story of Nelson Mandela and how during my student years, Nelson Mandela was considered to be a terrorist. They're surprised, they're shocked. Oh, Nelson Mandela, the world hero, was considered to be a terrorist. Yes, this is what Margaret Thatcher said. Etc. So yes, future generations will look back and say, how come that people like Sheikh Ahmed Yassin, people like Khalid Mish'al, Ismail Haniya, Sinwar, Muhammad al-Dif, how come these freedom fighters, how come that they were ostracized and considered to be terrorists, and people will really wonder how this was allowed to happen.
And also, we may see the Palestinian issue to be the impetus for a change in global order. In other words, we may see this to be the starting point. I don't know what's going to happen, but the way the United Nations is being structured, the UN Security Council composition, veto powers by the US and other countries, this may change if Palestinians one day achieve victory.
I think so. You see, this endeavor to change the world order is a continuous process. It started with the struggle of the people who preceded us. I'm sure that the Algerian struggle, the Vietnamese struggle, the South African struggle, the struggle of people in Latin America and elsewhere around the world must have contributed. Yet, the Palestinian issue is likely to be the turning point in this struggle. It's likely to be the tip of the hill, if one may say so. Because look at what's going on at the moment. In the most liberal democratic countries in the world, America, Britain, France, Germany, you name them, students are being beaten, they are being abused, expelled from their universities, denied graduation because they are peacefully demonstrating for Palestine, peacefully, not resorting to any violence. And now these students, who are going to be the next generation that leads the world, they're going to be the future lawyers, they're going to be the future judges, they're going to be the future economists, politicians, etc. They're asking themselves this question: okay, what is so liberal about these liberal societies? What is so democratic about these democracies? These leaders of ours are lying to us. There is no respect for human rights. There is no respect for the values of liberal democracy. This is hypocrisy. This is double standards. We have to change it. This is what Palestine is doing. It's provoking the young generation to rethink everything around them. Not only that, look at what's happening within Jewish communities around the world. Jewish students, young men and women of Jewish religion or of Jewish community, or call it whatever they like to call it, are also questioning Zionism. They're saying, why in our name? Why are these crimes being perpetrated in our name? We have nothing to do with this. We don't agree with it. And there's a very strong anti-Zionist Jewish movement today among the Orthodox as well as among the reformist or secularist Jews. And this is a major shift, because if we go back a little bit in history, in the early 20th century, the majority of the Jews were opposed to Zionism. And then because of developments in the world, ending up with the Holocaust, Zionism became acceptable to an increasing number of Jews, although some remained opposed to it. Now the trend is being reversed. An increasing number of Jews are waking up to this nightmare, and they are saying, not in our name. We will not accept that Netanyahu and the mad thugs who are with him are doing this in our name. That's a very important development.
Okay, I think I want to shift our discussion from the international scene to Malaysia, if you don't mind. There is now a hot discussion going on in Malaysia because a decision by a government-linked company, Khazanah, which is a Malaysian sovereign fund, together with another fund, also government-linked, is forming a consortium with a company called GIP, Global Infrastructure Partners, which is going to be bought over, or it's already been bought over. The decision has been made by BlackRock to take over this company, GIP. And we all know that BlackRock is a supporter of Israel. They have investment in Israel. The CEO, Larry Fink, is a very vocal supporter of Israel. And they also have shares in companies that supply, manufacture weapons that are supplied to Israel, companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, BAE, etc. So now many people in Malaysia are saying that this shouldn't be on. This shouldn't take place because Malaysia is a very strong supporter of the Palestinian cause. But the other party or supporters of the decision say that this is necessary for Malaysia's economic development, for competitiveness, for attracting investors to the country, etc., etc. So, have you been following this situation in Malaysia? If you have, can you give a comment on the situation, on this discussion, if you don't mind?
I've seen a video report, or TV report really about this. But my impression is that this has not yet happened. It's probably in planning, or has it happened?
No, it's not. It hasn't happened yet. Yeah.
Oh, luckily, it hasn't happened yet, and this gives us a chance to tell our brothers and sisters in Malaysia that this would be really a grave mistake if they sell their own national institutions to a Zionist entity or to an entity that supports Zionism. I mean, the least that the Malaysians can do for Palestine is to boycott companies, firms, or institutions that aid Israel in its genocide against the Palestinians. Short of this, I mean, how can one call themselves supporters? Supporters in what sense? Just you want to make dua for us? If you make dua for us, but at the same time you're pouring aid into the pockets of those who are slaughtering us, what's the point of that dua? It's meaningless. And it really it breaks my heart to see Arab and Muslim countries, because of various justifications like the ones you've just quoted. I mean, it's business, it's for our benefit, it's for our economy. They do this. I mean, this is how prostitutes justify their prostitution, isn't it? Anybody that does something wrong, they can find a means of justifying what they are doing. Yesterday, I was speaking to a brother from Turkey who formerly had some links with the government, and he tells me that for 7 months, until recently, the first 7 months of this genocide in Gaza, Turkey was the main supplier of Israel of vegetables and fruits. Imagine when Israel was having problems producing its needed foodstuff, Turkey jumped in because of the incentive of profit and rescued the Zionists. It's just terrible. It saddens me when we were thinking of this government in Turkey as a supporter of justice, not only in Palestine, but everywhere. And yet, for profit considerations, they do this. Imagine that if from day number one, Turkey refused to come to the aid of the Israelis, and if Turkey and the other Arab countries like Jordan, Egypt, and the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan threatened, if only they threatened to sever diplomatic relations with Israel, probably the genocide would not have lasted this long in Gaza. So Malaysia should not succumb to this sort of incentive that if you sell, you're going to be in a better position. This is going to embolden your economy. This is going to bring profits for you. This is going to mean better organization or whatever. It's nonsense. Where are our values? Where are our principles? Of course, in politics, pragmatism sometimes takes over and principles and values take a back seat. But this is not acceptable in a situation like the one in which we are, when this genocide is continuing without an end in view. So we would expect from the government in Malaysia, from the people of Malaysia, to intervene in order to prevent such support for a company that is known to be a main supporter of Zionism.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Azzam, for your comments on the topic of ICC and also on the topic of BlackRock in Malaysia. Thank you for spending time with us early morning over there in London. Hopefully, we will have more discussion in the future. Because we learn a lot from your assessment and your understanding of the issues of Palestine, also institutions that have impacts on the situation in the Middle East and Palestine in particular. Thank you again, Dr. Azzam. Thank you. Bye-bye. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.